Well, good evening. It is Monday, December 11th, 2023. Welcome to episode 42 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. Tonight's main topic is 16 issues that they don't care about. But what we're asking is the question of you, do you care? You know, from my perspective, there's a lot of these issues that I care about, and they're on my radar, and I hold pretty strong opinions on many of them in one regard or another. And this stream is not intended to solve any of these issues, but what I hope this discussion would do is kind of highlight some of the ways that maybe we can move forward as we discuss them. And despite the actions of the people that are trying to promote this as something we need to be concerned about, I hope to hear from you guys tonight. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and we'll get to the main topic here shortly. But how are you tonight, Rebecca?
I'm doing great. I had my nightly discussion with my chickens as I was putting them up. I'm proud of them for still laying eggs. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, we're actually we're going to be talking a little bit more about chickens in Q&A tonight. So if that's something that you want to hear about, stick around. They're cranking the eggs out still, even though they're quite heavily into the molt. But it's been 2 weeks since our last broadcast, and I've really been quite consumed with my knee injury. Hey, good evening. How are you tonight, Laura? Good to see you. I've been pretty consumed with the knee injury, and I was actually very concerned for probably the first week or so, just wondering whether or not I'd actually have to go and seek medical attention. But I decided to wait it out 2 weeks to see if things would get better, and slowly and progressively they've continued to improve. So I'm really happy about that. I guess one of the things that I've been able to do since then is I've been able to get myself a sweet knee brace. I bought a pair of crutches. So next time,
stubborn.
So next time something like this happens, hopefully I'll be a little bit more better prepared. But that's been something that's been positive, as well as just having somebody like Rebecca next to me as my partner, who's able to step in and kind of fulfill the role that I wasn't able to fulfill fully while, I've been injured. So it's just a really important aspect of having a good partner and teamwork and all. But I appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah. What's been going on around here is, I started making biochar this week, so I'm kind of stinky right now. I smell like smoke quite a bit, and been moving a ton of leaves. It's full autumn's in full effect, and leaves are dropping pretty hard off all the trees. And I really try to capture as much of that as I can, off the lawn and in other areas, so that I can get it into the chicken yard for composting. And I've been working pretty furiously to do that. We've also got new chicks on the homestead. We've got 23 new Novagen chicks that we just picked up about, a week and a half ago, maybe, or it hasn't been that long.
We started with 26.
Yeah. We started with 26. We've lost 3 thus far, which is kind of par for the course, but they're all doing well. And I'm going to be having a video come out on the Novagens again this weekend. So again, if that's something that you're interested in learning a little bit more about, and it's primarily because I've had a lot of people inquire about, how to get them and all. Mm-hmm. And so I've been very happy with that particular bird, and so expect that for this weekend. We've also been dealing with our first frost on the farm, which has been, I guess, probably not unlike some other people around the country have already been dealing with. But, here in this zone 9A, we're pretty temperate. We have very mild weather. So sometimes we don't get frost till later in the year. But we've still been enjoying, up until this last frost, we've still been enjoying vegetables out of our summer garden. We've had tomatoes that we've been harvesting up until last week, when the frost basically put the kibosh on the rest of them and completely killed all of our plants. So what we wound up doing is just harvesting all of the tomatoes, and then they're currently kind of ripening on their own in the kitchen right now. But we're still enjoying some of that summer produce. We've had our potatoes get nuked. So
Yeah, they're pretty sad.
yeah. Yeah. So they're about a month shy of being full as far as their maturity, but they're still in the ground, and we'll be pulling those here shortly. But I was hoping to see if we couldn't get some more growth come out of them, but it doesn't look as though they're going to bounce back, before they decide to get back into spring. So we'll be harvesting potatoes pretty shortly. What else we've been pulling out of the garden and eating around here? We've got kale, lettuce, broccoli. Yeah, we've been making a lot of dishes with broccoli and stuff like
You
that.
ended up pulling out the remains of the basil because
Yep.
the frost also kind of did it in.
Yep.
However, prior to that, it was just going like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're just kind of in a transition stage right now, as probably most people are. And got some beets and carrots in, but they're not looking too good. That's kind of the way it goes sometimes. We don't always win when we garden. There's a lot of things that we wind up trying to do, and we think we might have things figured out, and then another year comes by and we wind up not having the same amount of success. So my beets and my carrots are kind of looking sad, but they might pick up here in a little bit. But other than that, what do you got going on? Anything fantastic?
Well, I've been checking out the pantry and I'm looking for the word, sorry. But anyway, just making sure that everything is up to date. And what is older, kind of making sure that I pull it out and use it and just keep fresh and replacing. So that's one of the things that I'll actually be doing here in the next week is probably do some, as you spoke about us using the rotisserie chickens.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be getting ready to go and purchase a bunch of those and then start canning those for our following year use.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something you got to kind of stay on top of. Well, cool. Yeah, that's good to hear. Your hens are still cranking them out too, Laura. And I actually have a question coming up here shortly. I'm going to jump right into some Q&A. I like to try to answer these questions that I get from folks on the channel. And what was that first question, if you don't mind? I think it was one regarding somebody had a question about kind of related to a CAFO, which if you don't know what a CAFO is, it stands for concentrated animal feeding operation. And it can be with chickens, it can be with, cattle, it can be with any kind of, pigs, any kind of animal over a certain number of animals confined in an area for a certain number of days. It can be classified as a CAFO. And so this person had a question regarding that. Good evening, Adrian. How are you? Good to see you.
I believe it's the Winnipeg or at Winnipeg, Nick. And it would, let's see, they say it would be nice if the commercial chicken farms also had commercial compost piles on the farm. It would be a second revenue stream for farmers, better for the planet, and it produces healthier, happier chickens and eggs.
Yeah, and what that person was referring to was, just a video that I had out that, our chickens get to get out daily and they scratch and they do the thing out in the chicken yard. And that's what they were basically saying is like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if they would do that in these commercial farms? And what I basically told this person is that, I think that would be great. I like the way that they think. That's cool if they could do that for sure. I mean, I think that would be an awesome thing for animals, because what we have experienced here is that our hens lay much better when they have the opportunity to get out and to experience life in the way that chickens are supposed to be, which is kind of out roaming around doing chicken things. And I don't think they perform as well under pure confinement. That's not to say that they don't have very good production in these CAFOs, because that's what they're all about, is egg producing. And they're not that concerned with the compost aspect of it. They are very focused on manure management and nutrient management in that regard, because these facilities, when you have that number of chickens in a facility, the manure management is an incredible load. And so what they wind up doing with that stuff is, a lot of times, if they're in kind of like a cage type of a thing, it's different if they're like in like a modified free range or cage free type of an environment. But just the ones where you see them in those cages, they have belts underneath, and those belts basically transport their manure out, and then that manure gets dried so that it can be processed later elsewhere. And make no mistake about it, they're making money at that. They're selling it commercially to organic farmers and other places that are making compost, and they're selling that that resource. I don't know of that many places. I tried to do some research on it because I do have an interest in this, topic. And I don't think that many are actually doing both composting as well as, an egg layer operation. But just so that you can kind of wrap your head around the amount of manure that's produced from that number of birds. 100,000 birds, which isn't that large in one of these CAFOs, in one of these commercial operations. They have 100,000 to 1,000,000 birds or more in some of these larger places. And 100,000 birds will produce 1,500 tons of manure annually. And so it's an incredible load. It would be awesome if you could just put them out on the chicken yard, but make no mistake about it, what I do here on this property is because I enjoy it and I love it. And it's not a passive system. It's not something that is going to be the best use of your time, but I enjoy doing it, and it gives these hens an awful lot of benefit. They derive a lot from it. And so I
before you jump into that, we could make a comparison, because ours do get out and they are laying eggs, where we have a friend who keeps theirs pretty much in a coop, and they are not laying, and we both have Novagen Browns.
at the same age.
Yeah.
Same exact age, same exact litter. So yeah, there's that comparison to draw from. So we've been very happy, not only with these birds, but again, I want to just say, hey, good looking out, Nick, for that type of a thought, because I've had other people who have had that same thought, but it's just not practical. Those birds would be completely filthy and dirty. They're heavily regulated. All of those places are regulated by the state and federal government. They need to have a manure management plan, and they have to do something with all of that stuff, because all of that manure will wind up contaminating groundwater. It'll contaminate the soil. It's a contaminant. And unless you do something with that amount of manure, it's quite an issue. So I just wanted to kind of address that a little bit deeper, and I hope that answers some questions.
We should say hello to SKs Girl.
Yeah, what's up? How you doing, Cindy? I got her up on the thing there, but she popped in. So welcome this evening. Let's see here. Potpourri of Life says, I can't even read that. Let me read it before I put it on the screen. It is quite interesting. The chicken manure that is sold at garden centers goes for $2 a pound. I think I need to sell my chicken poo. Yeah. It's all about the whole processing and packaging and marketing and all of that sort of stuff that makes that cost go up, and the convenience of just going in and grabbing that sort of thing. I think the other question was regarding
our next question is at APB23. It says, don't you have to wait 2 years to use chicken manure before it's so hot, or is compost not the same temp? Because it's so hot, excuse me.
Yeah, that was a little bit kind of a weirdly worded question, but I understood what that person was getting after. And where they were getting kind of confused was the difference between hot, chicken manure being hot and compost being hot. So chicken manure, when they're talking about it being hot, it's based upon its volatility, not because it's temperature. It's not directly correlated in centigrade or Fahrenheit. So the thing that makes chicken manure hot, and there's a lot of people that don't understand this. In fact, there's a lot of poor information that's on the internet and written in blogs and things like that, where people think they know what they're talking about, and they're just kind of missing the mark a little bit. I was thinking of actually maybe doing a long form video on this issue, because I think that there's just a lot of misunderstanding about it. But the reason that chicken manure is hot isn't because it's high in nitrogen, which a lot of people have suggested. It's because it's high in uric acid, as well as all those undigested proteins. When an animal, whether it be a ruminant or whatever, a chicken or whatever, or a human eats food, there's a certain portion of that that's going to pass through. A certain portion of that protein is going to pass directly through. We're not able to process it all. And a chicken is an omnivore, which makes it even worse. Not worse, it just makes them have a higher level of that protein, because they're consuming not only plant matter, but they're consuming meat or insects or invertebrates or whatever else as another protein source. So they're very high in protein, but they're also high in uric acid, which is a result of the fact that when they go to the bathroom, when they excrete their waste product, it's all in one. It's not like they have urine over here and manure over there. It comes out in one big glop, and it has uric acid in it. And uric acid, when it decomposes, when it's exposed to bacteria, it winds up emitting ammonia. And ammonia in high concentrations is very detrimental. It's very harmful to plants, and it will burn your plant or kill it. And that's one of the reasons why they call it hot. So it has nothing to do with the nitrogen content, or it has nothing to do with, the nitrogen content, because if it was high nitrogen that caused it to burn your plants, that wouldn't make any sense, because rabbit manure, which you can actually put directly on your plants in your garden, is twice as much NPK as chicken manure. It has twice as much nitrogen, twice as much phosphorus, and twice as much potassium, as does chicken manure. So it's not at all related to the amount of nitrogen. And as I said before, there's a lot of people, when they say that it is, but it's clearly not. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that for that person. And it has nothing to do with the temperature of, say, hot compost, something that's being thermophilically composted. Let's see. Go ahead and do the next one. I think we got one more, and then we'll get into tonight's main topic.
Yeah, the next one is from at Vitachew 5826. It says, how are the Novagens laying in their second and third year? I got 6 Novagens this past April, and they have been consistently laying almost every day when they were about 18 weeks old, even in the gloomy Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, those particular birds will lay, as they state, 395 eggs in the first 18 months. And these birds are specifically designed to go into egg production. They're birds that would do very well in CAFOs if they're looking for brown layers. In fact, they're a cross between a white leghorn and a red leghorn. No, excuse me. A white rhodie and a red rhodie. Rhode Island red and a white Rhode Island red. That's the cross between these. And they're extremely highly productive. And so what ours have done in this first year, we have some that are from 2021. They're going into their third winter right now, but they're a full 2 years old. And last year they wound up producing all the way through. They didn't slow down a bit. Where we had other birds that were of the same age that they packed it in around, and these were some dual purpose birds, Dominique and Buff Orpington and Black Australorp and stuff like that. They packed it in, I think around October. They were like, yep, we're done. And they started laying again around February, but the Novagens never quit. And we've got birds now that are 2 years old going into their third winter that are still laying. they're just not as productive. So those birds will be getting culled this coming probably spring sometime, because we're going to have an overabundance of chickens and eggs at that point in time because of the new flock that we're going to be adding, which is 23 Novagens.
And that's part of my discussion with them, so that they don't get cold. I tell them, you got to kick it up. You got to keep laying eggs.
that would help their case. Let me tell you, that would help their case. But yeah, no, that's just one of those things you got to like consider. I'm not here trying to give people the false impression that we're running, you know, a pet sanctuary or a farm, like a retirement home for chickens. They're here for a purpose, and you know, I'm going to ensure that I'm not just pouring money down the drain. They're going to be treated well while they're here, and they're going to have a good life while they're here. But you know, that's just the reality of it. So I do have 23 new ones coming in that will be their replacement, and we'll be making some culls this spring.
Somebody just join us.
Hey, what's going on? Tab P, how are you? Good to see you. Well, let's see. That takes care of Q&A. We're going to do this main topic tonight. And I think it's one of those topics that most people are going to have an opinion about in one regard or another. There's going to be something here that you're going to go, you know what, I have a problem with that. Or yeah, that's a real concern of mine. But it's basically something that gets rolled out every election cycle. These are perennial issues that don't go away. Some of them are just recurring issues that never go away. And they're utilized, I think, by both sides of the political establishment to drive a wedge between people. And, you know, there's really nothing that we can do to fix any of these issues large scale, but there's certainly things that we can do individually to kind of sidestep some of these issues, to kind of insulate ourselves from some of these problems. And again, understand this is just a poll, and polls should be taken with a grain of salt, because it depends a lot on how they have worded the questions and how they've framed it and the issues that they want to give people choice of. But the thing that's very striking to me about this entirely is the amount of separation there is between the two sides. And that shows me, and that demonstrates to me that, you know what they want to accomplish, and I'm talking about they, whoever that is you want to assign that in, the power elite, what they want to accomplish out of these issues is working. When you see the amount of separation that we have between, you know, our neighbors, because we don't all have to have conservative leanings. We don't all have to have liberal leanings. We don't all have to have the same beliefs, but we all, you know, kind of are in the same game. They're playing a completely different game, and they're actually kind of, I think, in a lot of ways winning, because people don't realize they're being played. But anyhow, let me get to these. And what I'll do is I'll go through all 16 of them, and then we'll kind of go back through them and maybe discuss them a little bit and see if we have some ideas on, you know, how we can navigate through these. What's that?
I said, dress him. He's got a.
Oh yeah. Right on. Let's see here. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm good. I had three new chicks yesterday. Loving the Bruder heater I bought after seeing your video. Yeah, that's something that's new in my repertoire. I've been happy with it thus far. In fact, I'm going to have another video coming out kind of comparing the heat lamp against the Bruder plate. And I think both of them have utility. Both of them have value. And I kind of want to point that out. But I also want to show people how it is that I caught my Bruder on fire, what mistakes I made. And so that'll be a video that you can expect to see if, in fact, you watch my long form videos. Let's see here. Yeah, the only eat I see is everyone grows food, animals fruit trees, veggies, herbs, also herbs as medicine, and learn how to preserve and save seeds. Yeah, all of that stuff is just super, that's just super like important if you're in any way thinking you want to do things for yourself. I mean, we try to do as much as we can, but there's so much that we can't do. I mean, we don't make our own olive oil, right? We don't press our own olives to make olive oil. There's things you have to get at the store. And I think there always will be, but the more things that we can kind of do for ourselves, it just makes us a little bit more resilient.
However, there are things that you can get creative and be able to get around things you use.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But now's the time to do it. It's one thing to talk about things, but actions speak louder. And now that we are in, here's the finger quotes, guys, peacetime. Now that we're, everything's cool. Yeah, that's all good. No, I get it, Tab. I use lard and I use butter as well. But you know what? I'm not putting that on my salad dressing. We're not making salad dressing with lard. It's not happening. So there are things that we use those sort of things for. We use all of the other as well.
But we do use the lard.
Oh yeah, for sure. She makes soap with the lard. We cook with the lard, bake with the lard. I mean, all of that is super good stuff. But I like salad dressing with balsamic vinegar and honey, and she makes awesome homemade salad dressing.
The night before last, I was just too tired and I had to make salad dressing. And instead of making salad dressing, I put store-bought salad dressing on his
Couldn't eat it. It was gross.
He wouldn't have anything
I wouldn't
to
have,
do with it.
and that salad dressing I used to like. We used to like that, and I was like, "What is this? It sucks, man. I can't even eat this." But
I didn't tell him, and so he kept saying, "What's wrong with your salad dressing? Why does it taste so bad?"
Yeah, it was horrid. But anyhow, let's get to these 16 most important issues. So here's the article, guys. This is an article, 16 most important issues that are being ranked. And this is to Americans, but I can only assume that some of these might cross lines across in other countries. I'm sure a lot of people have similar concerns. But the first part of this, I'll just read it, and then we'll go through each one of them. It says, though the 2024 presidential election is over a year away, campaign season is heating up. Already, candidates on both sides of the aisle are honing their message in an attempt to connect with voters. While much of the political discourse so far has focused on former President Donald Trump and his legal troubles, the most important issues to the public at large are much broader in scope. A successful bid for the White House will, in all likelihood, go to the candidate who can most effectively speak to those issues. Right there, I call bullshit. Sorry. But if the guy that's in there right now is any indication of being able to speak well on these issues, I call BS. I think.
Well, they could speak well on the issues, but they're not going to solve the issues.
Right. Yeah, that's what it's all about. But anyhow, let's go through it. Number 16, unemployment. Number 15, international terrorism. Number 14, domestic terrorism. 13 is the conditions of roads, bridges, and other infrastructure. 12 is racism. 11, climate change. 10, the quality of public K through 12 schools. Number 9, illegal immigration. Number 8, the state of moral values. Oh, we're heating up. Number 7, the federal budget deficit. Number 6, violent crime. Number 5, gun violence. Number 4, drug addiction. Number 3 is the ability of Democrats and Republicans to work together. Number 2, healthcare affordability. And number 1, inflation. So again, we'll start back here. Let me take this off screen. And we'll start back at number 16, which is unemployment. And let me just say that this is actually one that, almost tied both sides. It was kind of like a low issue, kind of low in a priority. And I actually think it's kind of low in priority as well for me personally, because I'm a retired guy and I'm not looking for employment. But from the standpoint of it being kind of a larger issue, I think it is a larger issue, because if we have unemployment right now, but yet there's people that are actually looking to hire people, but people don't want to work, I think that's a real problem. Because for one, those people are not contributing to the economy, and they're in more ways probably being a drain on the system from tapping into social services. They're probably also, with all that idle time not working, they're getting into mischief of some sort, either crime or some other thing that's not very productive. So I think it is actually kind of a big problem. I don't think it really rises to the level of some of these other issues for me, per se. But really, what can any of us do about that? If you're an employer, try to hire people, I guess, right? If you're somebody who's unemployed, go out and get yourself a job, because plenty of jobs exist. I don't know if that's actually one of those things that we can actually do a whole lot about individually, unless you're actually somebody who's seeking employment. Then clearly that's within your reach to go and get a job, because there's so many places that are just hungering for people to work, right?
But as long as you can get a check and somebody else can pick up for you, and it's close to what you would make minimum wage, why do you want to go to work?
Yeah. The next one on the list is international terrorism. And I think over the course of years since 9/11, since September 11th, that was a much bigger issue. And I think we've been able to learn since that time, a lot of all of the stuff that they were pushing during that time really hasn't came to pass. All of the threats of sleeper cells and all of those things, they never really materialized. So whether that's a result of them just being so good at keeping people out of this country, okay, right? Whether it's because of that, or there just never was really that big of a threat, I don't know. Maybe it was in an effort to try to get us to give away more of our freedoms. That could very well have been some of the motivation for the threat levels and all of the different things that they were able to get pushed through the Bush administration with the Patriot Act and all of those sort of things. So I don't know. It's not really big on my radar, to be quite honest. 23% of Democrats thought it was a big problem. 36% of Republicans thought it was a big problem. Domestic terrorism is number 14. Just say that Democrats think it's, I guess, a bigger problem than Republicans. 41% thought it was a big problem. 25% of Republicans think it's, an issue. I don't particularly see it as much of an issue. I think that the FBI and the intelligence agencies are now kind of shifting the focus to try to get the message out there that, we need to be wary of domestic terrorism because of what we've seen since, I guess, J6, when that whole deal went up.
So do you think that also is to create more separation from people? Stay home, fear mongering?
Yeah, I think it's a tool of manipulation and a tool of fear to keep people on edge. And what that does is it promotes legitimacy to those agencies that, oh, hey, we need them to do these sort of things. We need another bill to take more rights away from people, because there's this huge, overarching threat from, domestic terrorism, when I really don't see a lot of that. I mean, occasionally we have like wacky stuff happening with Unabombers and, all of that sort of stuff. But, a lot of that stuff is, I don't know. It's just not that big of an issue on my radar. And I don't really know if there's a whole lot that we can do kind of to avoid it. If it's there, it's there. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think that there's anything that we can do to change that. We can only prepare ourselves and protect ourselves and our family.
Right. Yeah, I think that's kind of the answer for a lot of the stuff that threatens your your safety and your security. The next one is something that shows up every single election cycle.
Every single.
Yeah, every single election cycle is the conditions of roads, bridges, and other infrastructure. It's just that one of those perennial issues that, oh, sure, yeah, I love, we need to do the roads. We need to build our this. I mean, it's always going to be an issue. So I don't think it was really seen that high on the list from either side. Yeah, what can you do? I don't think there's anything we can individually do other than maybe in your local area, maybe put some people in that can make that change. But from a federal level or even at the statewide level, it's probably not much we can do. Number 12. Okay, now this is getting interesting for me. Number 12 is racism. And I think there's a pretty big divide on the two different sides on this. 55%, more than half of Democrats see this as a very big problem, and only 14% of Republicans see it as a big problem. And I have to tell you, I don't really see it as a problem at all. I think that there's far too much sensitivity in this country regarding race and the ability to talk amongst each other, and everything needs to be turned toward race, it seems to me. And I haven't really experienced a lot of racism, quite honestly, in my life. Maybe that's the reason why I feel the way that I feel. But I've grown up me, and I've lived in areas most of my life where people don't look like me from a skin color standpoint. And I got to tell you, I have not experienced that. And so I'm just purely speaking from my standpoint, because I really get the sense that there's people who feel as though racism is a really huge problem in this country. And I'm just not feeling that.
I don't really think it's an issue unless you want to make it an issue.
Yeah. I think the people that, have issue are being treated because of their actions, not necessarily because of their skin color, because I know a lot of people of a lot of different ethnicities. And really, I think people judge another based on how you present yourself. Now, that's not to say that racism doesn't exist. I mean, I'd be a fool to say that. Anybody would be a fool to acknowledge that, or fail to acknowledge that it doesn't exist, because it clearly does. But I'm just saying, from my standpoint, I don't see it as an issue. And I think that it's something that tends to wind up in these type of polls just so they can kind of keep that idea of, oh, we've got, there's so much racism going on, it's whatever. And I just don't see that.
Well, you also brought up that what we hear on the news is the white on black, but you don't ever hear the black on black crime or the white on white crimes.
No.
You just hear what they want you to hear.
Yeah. Things just do not rise to the same level of, attention when they're the same ethnicity going against, others. Yeah, I don't know. It's not really that big of an issue for me. Let's see here. I got to read this first since the screen's so small. It says the road issue is a distraction. They know it needs to be done, but if they do anything, it seems as though it's done with less quality repairs.
Well, it's just patching, I noticed, because they were on one of our streets that had a lot of potholes, and all they were doing was patching the holes that are just going to get chewed up inside of a couple storms.
Yeah, that's something that is like has to be done though. That you can't every time you get potholes, you can't just run out and repave the road. I mean, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, we can't keep crack sealing and doing all this repair. It's more expensive and it's time consuming. So they just wind up putting it into the schedule to replace it. And they have replaced roads in our community, and it's something that is always happening. It's always in city budgets, it's always in county budgets, it's in state budgets, it's in federal budgets for this sort of thing. But it's never. It seems like they could spend their money better, and we would have less of these issues if more of our money wasn't being sent abroad to fund things that maybe some of us don't agree with. I don't know, but we weren't really given a vote on that. All we get to vote for is red or blue. And then when that person gets in, who knows where the money goes, because it's hidden in some bill. So there's a certain amount of frustration that I think most people have with regard to the whole process. And yeah, it's a perennial issue that just doesn't go away. Yeah, Houston's kind of an area with a lot of crime from what I've seen. There's a channel, Active Self-Protection on YouTube. And I've watched this guy quite frequently, but he has a lot of videos, daily of all these crime things that happen. And there's just a grip of videos coming out of Houston, Texas. And it's like, man, they must have some issues down there. I don't know. Yeah. It says, obviously you've never driven in Louisiana. Instantly when you cross the state line from any of our border states. Many are no longer roads, just a myriad of filled potholes. Yeah. I guess that's what we're voting for, guys. The ability to complain about this every election cycle. But it's like, again, where's the money go? These are important things, obviously, infrastructure in our country and our ability to get from place to place. That should take precedent over some of the other things they're funding. But I guess we don't get a real say in that so much. Yeah. Roads are a perfect example of perfect obsolescence. We could make great roads, but we got to make jobs. Says Ghost. So let's go down to the next one, which again, I don't think is much of an issue, but that's the difference between, I guess, the people supposedly I align with and the other side. The other side seems to think that this is a really huge issue because 64% of Democratic voters see this as a very big problem, while only 14% of likely Republican voters see this as a problem. This is lowest of all for the Republicans. Yeah, this is number 16.
Number 16.
Yeah. So again, I don't see it as a big issue. Maybe that's because I align more closely with the conservative side of things, but the issue is climate change. And I guess from my perspective, this is the way that I see it. I'm not a scientist. I'm not somebody who understands this fully. I don't have all the answers, but I do try to just think about things logically. And one of the things that I know that's actual is the fact that since the beginning of time, the climate has been changing. It's been ebbing and flowing, getting hotter, getting colder, getting hotter, getting cold. It kind of does that, from what I understand, from the beginning of time. And I think I would have a little bit more belief in what they're saying regarding this climate change thing if it wasn't, they had a message that it was getting colder, and then all of a sudden, nope, it's getting hotter. We're going to have an ice age. No, we're going to boil off the oceans. I guess I'm just a little bit at a loss how so many people can be captivated by this message when the message really, it seems to change with whoever decides to put the message out there. And another thing that's a little disingenuous, I think, in the way that I'm looking at it, is they always want to attach it to what we need to do in order to make, life better for ourselves. And it's always at the expense of the way we're living our lives now. We have to change to make it better. I don't know. I just find it very, very much of a hoax.
But if we're the only ones changing and no one else is around the world,
Yeah,
how is it helping?
that's the other aspect of it. China and India, they're some of the biggest polluters out there. But what we're talking about is global. We're talking about greenhouse gas emissions, which are going to affect the ozone layer. That's a global thing. So we do everything right, but they don't do it in other countries. So what are we doing? We're hurting our own people. I just personally don't see this as much of an issue, but I do find it very fascinating, the separation between both sides. Number 10, quality of public K through 12 schools. Almost a tie on this one. Yeah, it was the 9th highest for both Democrats and Republicans. I think this is an issue for sure, but I think this is an issue that's actually solvable if parents want to solve the problem, because they do have options. For one, they don't have to take their kids to school. They can homeschool. That is absolutely an option for them, unless possibly it's going to make it more difficult if it's just a single parent. But if there's two parents, you've made a choice to make your life so that you have to go out and have two incomes. You can obviously, if you wanted to, you could make a change to that.
Yeah.
By cutting out certain things and making that adjustment. But it's you have to want that. I think that's one of those things that could actually be changed if a person wanted it to be changed. But I do find it.
Well, I think it's also solvable in the fact that you don't have to have everything new. Hand-me-downs are good. That's going to cut costs. That's going to allow.
You mean in school?
Well, this is affecting school. If
You're talking
homeschooling.
You're talking
so
about
you're
talking about personal finances,
right?
Yeah. Okay. No, I get it. Yeah, people can make choices if this is a real problem for people. And I'll tell you what, if my kids were still at school age and we were going into that, we made the change years ago where she was able to stay home, and that was something that we decided to do so that there would at least be one parent in the home. But when we first met, we were both working, but we transitioned over, we made some changes, and we did that for our family. But again, had I seen what it's like, or had it been like it is now with some of the stuff they're pushing in school and, some of the stuff that's winding up going away, all of the curriculum that actually people can learn, hands-on skills are being taken out of the schools, ag shop, metal shop, all those things, home ec, typing, all of these classes are just going away.
And all of those are work-oriented too, to train.
They're blue collar.
To go out and be something.
They're blue collar, they're life skills. And all of those things are things that we used to have available to us in school that now is like a la carte. If you want to go and get your driver's license, they don't have that in school anymore. You got to pay for it. So where's all this money going? There's a problem. There's a problem administratively. There's a problem with regard to the curriculum. So I think that this is quite an issue. It's not really for us so much because we don't have school age children, but if I did, I would be like figuring a way to navigate around that for sure, because we do have the ability to do that. Next topic. What do you think of that one?
Illegal immigration.
Yeah, illegal immigration. I think, for as much as
it's a problem.
It's a huge problem. It's literally a huge problem. I've seen video after video after video of people coming from foreign countries into this country. People from Africa, people from China, all different places, and they're all coming through Mexico. And I think that would easily be solved if you had a president or an administration or willingness to make Mexico pay for that. Because how are they getting there? That's big business, right? These people aren't just, how can you afford to come from Africa into Mexico and then into our country? I mean, follow the trail. So it seems to me like if there was willingness to shut this down, they would, but they didn't. They actually encouraged more illegals to come in. And in fact, there's been a surge by over 400% from 458,000 to 2.4 million. And that's in 2 years. From 2020, when OFJB came in, to now, or to 2022, I should say, surge 400% from 458,000, less than 500,000, to 2.4 million.
I still say, as they come across the line, there's a form that says, check this box and sign your name
Well, what's that mean?
for voting.
Well, that's what they're probably doing anyhow, because what I've seen actually is all these people coming across, and Border Patrol's been giving them a packet, and they've all got this manila packet that they've taken, and then they're loading them onto buses and taking them to the places where they want to go. That's what they're doing at the border. They're pouring across. And I don't know, man, like, look at the separation here. It's 25%. Only 25%, only 1 in 4 Democratic voters think this is an issue, while 70% of Republicans think it's an issue. I would wonder, this is what I wonder. If Trump was in the office, or a Republican, not even Trump, just a Republican was in the office, and this is what we had happening to our country, I wonder if that number would still be 25% on the Democratic side. I just have to ask myself that question, because you can't think this is a good idea. And I think they actually thought it was a good idea in a lot of these cities. Hey, come here, sanctuary city. And now they're finding out, like in New York and other places, it's just been a disaster. So I don't know. These people that are saying this, these 25%, or the people that don't think this is an issue, are obviously people that don't live in border states. They don't live down in San Diego. They don't live down in, Yuma, Arizona, or El Paso, where they're just flooding across the border. So, it is a really big issue. And
I agree with Tab as far as the debit cards, the housing, and free medical and cell phones, and nothing is free. So who's paying for that?
yeah, we're all paying for that in one way or the other, in jobs that are being taken away from other people if you in fact want a job, or social services that are being provided to these people at expense. So it's like, I don't know, it is a really big issue. And I take exception with the fact that we don't have a system that honors the will of the people, because clearly I think most people wouldn't vote for this, but maybe some people would. Not, I guess they wouldn't if it came to their city. Those people that are probably being polled live in a nice place, overlooking all of that down there. They don't have to deal with it. But if you had to deal with it, I don't think most people would be okay with it. Oh yeah, one sheriff in Texas reported they are giving them a $5,000 Visa card. Yeah, that is.
They should give them a cord.
Give them a what?
A cord.
A cord of what?
I can't go any further than that.
Okay. What do we got here? If the government would find huge companies that hire illegals, maybe the illegals wouldn't come over for jobs. Yeah, I know. It's none of that's ever going to happen. It's just sad. I mean, it is quite sad to see. State of moral values, again, number 8. Man, we're only on number 8. 39% of Democrats feel as though this is a big issue. 69% of Republicans feel that this is a big issue. Yeah. As far as moral values for everyone, I don't know if there's an answer for that. There's certainly an answer because it starts at the home level, teaching your children manners, teaching them what the difference between right and wrong is. And we have the ability to do that for sure.
I think that's all that we can really do is to teach them so that as they grow, they spread and teach their children. And hopefully it continues to carry from there.
Yeah, that's the only really thing that we can do. But there has definitely been a decline in the morality of this country, and it's kind of hard to see. It's kind of hard for me to watch. And I don't know. Do you think that every generation feels this way, or is it just things are just now really becoming quite accelerated? Because it seems as though things are kind of out of hand. We were actually in Home Depot today, and I was having a conversation. I was getting some wire cut, making a pigtail or something, and the guy had to come over and unlock the thing to, use the bolt cutters to cut the cable. And he was telling me, he says, "Yeah, it's kind of sad that I got to lock these up because people just steal them now, And then there was a dude standing there, and he's like, "Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, it's crazy." He says, "I was just in Marshall's yesterday, and like a person runs in and just grabs like an armful of clothes off the rack and it just runs out the store. And then the store people are just like looking at him going like we can't do nothing. And I guess they just go make a report. And that's what happens here. That never used to happen, but it's happening with increasing frequency. And that just speaks to the decline of morality in people if they're willing to do that. And it's not that they don't have work. They can go out and find a job if they actually wanted to, but it's easier to go ahead and boost it and just grab it from a store. And then I guess turn around and sell it either on eBay or sell it in the back of their trunk. I don't know, man. It's a really weird thing for me to watch. And I'm just like kind of venting on that, but morality it's really,
I was reading what SKs Girl put up there.
Yeah. I've never seen so many young people who haven't been taught to respect anything. Yeah.
They don't even, if they're checkers at a grocery store, they don't even hardly give you eye contact. They're just off in another world.
Yeah. I don't think they value their job like people used to value their job, even though it was a shitty job bagging groceries, minimum wage, whatever, I mean, it's like the quality of help, man. It's hard when you actually find a kid that has a good attitude and he's smiling or she's smiling and they're just like, you're like, wow, that's refreshing. That was nice. But most of the time they're just like zombies, doing their job, and they could give two shits about like customer service. And what's their boss going to say? Hey, be a little nicer. And they'll be like, yeah, I'm out of here, dude. See ya. So I don't know. It's a wacky deal. Good evening, Dean Mullis. How are you tonight, man? Yeah, the family unit, it's like everything, man. It's everything. That's why we're here in California still. It's everything.
I was telling Eric, we do Thanksgiving here and both sides of the family come. It's a big event. And it's really nice. Everybody gets to socialize and interact. And in the past, we've actually had some of the neighbors come as well. And as I get older, I suppose I feel how important family is.
Yeah.
And so this was the first time that after sending out the invitation and having everybody come, I also sent out a thank you for them all showing up and how appreciative that I was, and that I really enjoy the fact that I have family.
Yeah. It's super important. Absolutely important. Number 6, we're getting down to the wire here, guys. Number 6, getting juicy. Violent crime. On the rise. I think both sides see this as kind of a big problem. 52% of Democrat voters see this as a big problem, and 64% see this as a big problem. Yeah, you're not going to stop it, but there are things that we can all do to make ourselves a little bit less vulnerable, a little bit more whole as it relates to this. Absolutely 100%. That's within our control to do. What can we do, Rebecca?
Well, for us, we keep ourselves protected with EDC, and definitely start with the nonviolent, but we do have the ability to increase that if need be, if we're threatened.
Yeah, so she's referring to lethal and non-lethal. And, something that I carry, I just try to do it as a force of habit. I don't always wear my gun when I'm sitting here at the house, but when I leave the property, I'm putting something on. And it's just a good habit to get into, because you never know when you might be confronted with the need to defend yourself. And I just think that's something that if we have the ability to carry, if we have the ability to protect ourselves in that way, it's something that's a really good habit to get into. Obviously, you don't want to do stupid things in stupid places with stupid people. You want to try to avoid going and putting yourself in a position where you would ever have to use or defend your life with lethal force. But there's so many things that you can do. Just keeping your head up when you're walking in public.
Yeah, not looking at your cell phone, not sitting in your car, I guess, unlocked if you've got to be in your car, lock the doors.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's something that John Correa, and I just mentioned him earlier with active self-protection, talks a lot about. And that's, transitional spaces. Whenever you're moving from some place to another place, it's a transitional space. And that's when you're going to be most vulnerable. So when you're walking from the store to your car, you should have your head up with purpose, going somewhere, looking at your surroundings, because you're going to be a lot less likely to be targeted by violent crime if you're somebody who's paying attention rather than being somebody who's distracted and looking down at your phone. You're going to instantly signal to somebody who wants to target you that you're a victim, and you'll be an easy mark. So there's so many things that we can do, positioning yourself in places, not, here's another example.
We don't go out at night either
No,
as well.
Not so much. If I do, I've got those tools on me. In addition, I always carry a flashlight, which can be used as a defensive weapon. It's probably one of the better defensive weapons that you can use, because it's not like you're even pepper spraying somebody, but you hit them with, 1,200 or 1,600 lumens in their face. They can't see a thing. You're going to blind them. And it's just good to be prepared whenever you go places, because the problem is so many people live their life with having that normalcy bias of, oh, nothing's ever happened and it's never been a problem. But the reality is nothing probably has happened to you driving your car, but every time you get in your car, you put your seatbelt on, don't you? Why is that?
Well, we do now.
What do you mean we do? Well, you're talking about when she was young. Like,
when I was a kid,
yeah.
You stood up next to your mom in the front seat. There was no seatbelts.
Yeah, that's back in the day, man. Lap belts and all that stuff. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Bruce? Good evening, man. Good to see you. But yeah, there's so much that we can do to protect ourselves. And I feel as though it's my obligation to not only protect myself, but protect her when we're out. She's got a permit too, but she doesn't carry like she should. Why is that? Put her on blast.
Thank you.
Why is that?
For one, it's hard for me to conceal it in my clothing without wearing something that's huge and baggy all of the time. So that's actually probably one of the biggest reasons.
Should we get you a smaller piece?
Maybe.
Yeah. We might get you a little 380 or something. I don't know. Yeah, man. Those Olights are cool. I mean, I got it right here in my pocket now. I use it every day. And
I do take mine out with me, and not 100%, but I do take my pepper spray with me quite a bit too. So I do have those two things on me.
Yeah, non-lethal is a lot of people that carry, they don't carry it. I carry it because it's very inobtrusive, and I would much rather use that as a tool, possibly to fend someone or someone's off before I wind up throwing lead. Because I think it's easier to think about doing something like that than actually pulling the trigger and doing something like that. And it's going to be life altering when you do. So I would prefer not to even have to go down that road. So I like to think about having as many options as I can before I would ever have to exercise lethal force. And that's just the way that I view it. Yeah, there's so many things you can do regarding the violent crime. Another thing that I do, and this is just the weirdo in me, I guess, but whenever I go into like a store, I'm looking at seeing where the exits are so that I can get out of there if I need to, because there's just been too many like things in the news where people are in these Walmarts and big buildings and things where they need to get out, and they're in there now, they're a target. So I always make sure that I know where those exits are. And there's always going to be an exit at the back of the building of any of these retail establishments. That's where their stock room is. And there's going to be an exit out of there. So you can always go that way. But it's just good when you're in a big Hobby Lobby or some huge 100,000 square foot building to just know where those exits are. And that's just stuff that you can do to lessen the threat that might come your way. So just another thought, guys. Number 5. Oh boy. Gun violence. What do you think of that? 81% of Democrats see this as an issue. That's the highest of all 16. They view this as the highest issue. And 38% of Republicans think gun violence is an issue. I call bullshit on both of them, because guns aren't violent. First of all, the gun is a tool. It's not violent. It's people that have the problem. It's people that are violent. So just the mere fact that they worded it that way, I have an issue with.
Well, and I feel with or without a gun, if somebody wants to be violent, they're going to, or create violence, they're going to find a way to do it with or without a gun. So gun violence, as you said, is really, the gun is not violent.
No, it's a people issue. And this is one of those things that politicians on both sides realize the value to them, because they're able to use this as that wedge between the sides. This is an issue like Roe versus Wade or something like that, where people have very strongly held beliefs about it, and they know it's a wedge issue, and so they continually push the issue. Republicans are willing to say, hey, we're going to protect your 2A rights, while they slowly and incrementally allow our rights to be taken. And then the Democrats have bought into the narrative that, somehow guns are the problem. And yeah, this is a part of our constitutional right. It's the Second Amendment. It's the one behind free speech. Remember that one? So we currently have somebody who is at the highest level in our country who's advocating to take more of these rights away. But yet I understand that person probably put their hand on some kind of a book and swore to uphold
justice.
Yeah, so again, it's just another wedge issue. And what you can do, I don't know about that. Is donating to any of these types of organizations, Gun Owners of America, or any other of those organizations, is your money going to be well spent there? I don't know.
The deer are complaining.
Yeah, you got to get rid of those. Got to get rid of those semi-automatic deer rifles.
Get yourself a bow and arrow.
That works too. Knife violence. Yeah, it's just, again, it's a wedge issue that's going to continually show up. And so number 4 is drug addiction. I think that it's an extremely huge problem for this country. Much of the drugs, illegal drugs, come through the southern border. And yeah, it's just a huge issue. There's so many people that wind up losing their lives. And we're not just talking about junkies on the street. We're not talking about heroin addicts or whatever. We're talking about young people. We're talking about working class people that are winding up losing their lives due to opioids. And the amount of opioids that have been prescribed in this country is kind of, it's criminal. It's criminal. Yeah, it's absolutely criminal. The amount of opioids that they just wind up handing out like candy. And Rebecca and I were talking about it the other day that anytime you go in for any kind of a procedure, whether it be pull your teeth or something, right? They give you this big old bottle filled with like hydrocodone or Tylenol 3 or something, some kind of an opioid type drug. And that stuff is very addictive. I do not take it. I think I've taken maybe 3 of those in my life, but I didn't like it because it makes you like constipated,
I
And
don't like it either. I've had 3 C-sections and took pain medication maybe the first day out of the hospital and just figured, you know what, I could tough this out.
Yeah. I had abdominal surgery a few years back, and same thing. Only thing I ever took for that was aspirin. They gave me a bottle of prescription to fill, and I took it because it's good to have that stuff on hand. It's really good to have that stuff on hand. I've got some of it on hand. I've never taken any out of the bottle. It's just I got a bottle, and I wound up just swapping out the stuff that I had from before. But having that stuff is invaluable because if you need it, you need it. And I actually had a friend who dropped a pipe on his foot, broke his foot, man, like bad. And he was welding this arch and whatever, like a dummy. He had his foot there, and the sawhorse dropped, and it crushed his foot. And he wound up doing that on a Friday night. And I was able to give him some of those pain meds just to get him through. He didn't want to go to the emergency room or whatever. So he just kind of suffered and took some pain pills until he could get to his doctor on Monday. But what if you couldn't get to the doctor? What if you didn't have the ability to do that? So it's important to have that, but man, they're just giving that stuff out like candy. And so many people have died in this country. It's like an epidemic.
Yeah, but it's the okay to take it.
Right.
It's a prescription.
Right. Yeah. I think people look at it like that, like, oh, look, I can take one every 4 hours because my doctor said so,
And the doctors have no problem refilling them.
Yeah. See what old McDonald has to say. It says 73.6 thousand people died from fentanyl last year in the U.S., but certain people want to say guns are the problem. Man, ain't you correct? That is like 100%, they don't really put their focus where their focus really should be. They divert you with, oh, it's the guns, because we need to attack guns. Guns are the problem. But yet they're allowing these sort of drugs to pour across our border. And they're also allowing prescriptions to be written kind of in a very, in a loose and reckless way, and it kind of all ties to, those bigger issues. You got Pfizer and Moderna and all these other companies that need to be paid, right? So they're not really going to go after it too hard. But
did I ever tell you that I got a call from my dentist? I got chewed out. This was after I had my wisdom teeth pulled. I went water skiing and I wouldn't take the pain medication.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see here. Heard of a new one that's mixed. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, I've heard of a new one that is mixed with the other, and it boosts everything. It is made for horses, causes internal voice. Yeah, I haven't heard of that drug. What's that all about, man? Who's getting hold of that? Hopefully that's not a new thing or whatever, but it seems like there's always some kind of a new thing. Yeah, it says, look how long they've been pushing them. Honestly, I seem to hurt worse when they wear off. My theory is that your body wants the high and increases the pain. Yeah, that could very well be, Skanes. That could very well be. Let's see here. Oh boy, yeah. Number 3, I don't even know how this is really like a big issue or whatever from people. Hey, what's up, Melly? Number 3,
It's our little girl coming to visit.
apparently, is the ability of Democrats and Republicans to work together. I mean, that's
It shouldn't even be a problem.
no, it actually shouldn't. And it's kind of an interesting thing because it used to be that there was a lot less vitriol toward either side. And one of the things that actually made me kind of sick to the point where I didn't want to watch the replay, it just really bothered me, is watching the debate, the third and final debate between Trump and what's his face last year. It was sickening to watch those two dudes who are running for the highest office in the land basically acting like children, screaming back and forth at each other.
Having temper tantrums.
Yeah, well, they weren't. I didn't think they were having temper tantrums. I just thought
They
were fighting back and they were yelling at each other, and it was upsetting because that's going to be your next president, one of those dudes, and it's just like that never used to happen. That was the first time I'd ever seen that. That's unheard of, but that's kind of how. Talking about those declining moral values and just the ability of people to work together. There's really not a lot of that anymore. And really the only thing that these folks can agree upon is spending our money. That's what they're very good about agreeing for, because they've all got special interests aligned in their districts.
I agree with SKs Girl.
What?
They are getting fat wallets.
Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a very very corrupt thing when you kind of look and see what these people are taking back to their districts and all the things that are in these bills that neither side has really read. They've just read the part that their people have told them, hey, this is your little cut right here. You need to know that that's in there. But these bills are like hundreds of pages long with all this legal talk in them. But yet they're signing those things, right? They're putting them into law. And I don't think this is really going to improve. I wish I would be wrong on that, but I don't think it's going to improve. I do think it's kind of a big problem.
Welcome to the freaking show.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Number 2 is healthcare affordability. 73% of Democrats saw that as being the highest problem. And 54% of Republicans saw it as the highest problem for them. And I think it really kind of should be, because I don't really know how this could be much of an issue, particularly for Democrats. I don't know how they should be complaining at all, since a few years ago we wound up having the Affordable Care Act rammed down our throats. And they were super in favor of that because, remember, hope and change, that was going to usher in this great new bill that would save everybody's healthcare issues. That didn't really happen, but here's the thing that's kind of a mind blower for me, is that people they're still believing that all we need to do is vote harder. This is the number 2 issue. It's a big issue for both parties. And I guess it really should be, because that's one of the reasons why I don't even like going to the doctor, man, because nothing's paid for, even though we have health insurance.
Well, and you go to the doctor, and then they send you down to the lab, and then it's got to go out to a third party because the lab doesn't read the x-rays or whatever it was that they had, the blood work or whatnot. So you're paying your copay, you're paying the fee for the lab, you're paying the fee for the third party, and then it comes back because they've got to read it, and then there's a fee there too. So it's not too affordable.
Uniparty, welcome to the show.
That's why I said, welcome to the freaking show.
Yeah. We need a conservative statesman with honesty, integrity. Yeah. The thing that's interesting about that, Bruce, is that the people that say the things that I want them to say, and I believe that they mean a good deal of what they say, those people will never wind up holding office in this country. I feel that way about the last guy, number 45. He did a lot of good in this country for a lot of people. There's a lot of his policies that were working, and a lot of people were both better economically. We were better militarily, even though we didn't enter into new wars. We were better prepared for such a thing, peace through strength. And our border policy, our energy policy, our standing around the world, a lot of those things were a much better scenario than what we currently have. And I think that there's some people out there that are speaking to the things that a lot of us are thinking. But the reality is that the way that the system works, I don't know if those people will ever have a shot at really becoming that conservative statesman, because they're calling themselves conservative, but they're really just a part of the machine. Our choices that are being trotted out there, right? And I'm just speaking, I'm not going to be somebody who's really intent on running to the polls because I'm going to make a difference. I just think that when you start looking at it and you realize, oh, that dude's saying that, he's going to say something that true. Oh no, you're never going to be president. Whether that's in the future or again. And that's just my take on people that are willing to be actual conservatives and actually do things. Because if you step too far outside of the common thought of how you should behave to get your donor money and all those sort of things, you're going to be hated. And I think that's why DJT is hated so much, not only in this country by so many people, but around the world globally, because he's not a player like just another puppet. And so Ron Paul tried. Yeah, he did, man. Ron Paul was cool, man. I like that guy. Yeah, he's a good old dude, old curmudgeon. He's got some good ideas, but yeah, it's never going to happen, man. There's the machine, and you gotta play. You gotta play to get in there. So, any guesses toward number one? It's probably high on most of your lists. Certainly high on mine. Let's see here. We are going to scroll down, and we are getting to number one, which is inflation. Whew. So 52%. Yeah, you got it. You got it, Bruce. Perfect. 52% of likely Democrat voters see this as a very big problem, and 77% of those surveyed on the Republican side see it as a big problem. You know, it's a big problem for both sides, and it really should be. I don't have any graphics or anything to say it's higher now than it was then. We can all see that just by going to the store. We can go purchase things that it just doesn't, your money doesn't go as far. And this is just, it's that hidden tax, you know, because they can't tax you more. They can, but they're not willing to do that because they don't want to disrupt people and make them even more pissed off. And they can't really manipulate interest rates more than they've already done. And so now that they've lost the ability to do those two things, to manipulate things, really all they can do is keep printing more money that doesn't exist, which in essence is just a hidden tax on all of us. You're going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that when you go and you buy a box of cereal, or in this case, I was buying frozen fruit for smoothies, and I was feeling how much fruit was in the bag. And I kid you not, what used to be a full bag may have been a peach and a half sliced in there.
Yeah, shrinkflation. Yeah, that's funny, Dean. I like that, man. Says I thought the number one was going to be biochar. Yeah, bring it. So yeah, that's the list. Do you have that other list? I wanted to just compare. This is the part that was kind of striking to me. These are the top 3 issues from both parties. And it's pretty interesting to look at the divide here to see what was important to Republicans versus what was important to your neighbor, the Democrat, or maybe he's not your neighbor, but you know what I'm saying. The top 8 for Republicans was inflation, or excuse me, I'll just do the top 3. Inflation, federal budget deficit, illegal immigration.
So that was for the Republicans,
Mm-hmm.
meaning
Democrats, gun violence, healthcare, climate change. So that's a pretty big gap there as far as what people think is important. And I can only imagine that's just due to the media's influence on people. I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? But
I was going to answer SKs Girl's question.
What's that?
The same with the cereal boxes getting smaller, but the cost of, I don't eat them, so it doesn't matter, but potato chips, the size of the large bag is darn near what you could get over at the deli size bag now. I mean, it's shrunk down that much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They're doing all kinds of tactics to try to make you think, that you're getting the same, but they're giving you less and you're paying either the same or, more. And I don't know, man. I think the answer there is to try to grow more of your food. I think it's going to be interesting, the next time something happens and to see how people respond in this country. I think it's going to be an interesting experiment. I don't know what that next big thing is going to be, but it's not going to take much to get people to really freak out. So who's to say? I think that this next year, now that we're entering silly season, right? We're entering the election cycle. I think it's going to be a pretty turbulent year somehow, because if you recall, things were going pretty well. And I mean, everything was sailing along good. And then all of a sudden you had this COVID, you had the George Floyd riots, and it was a weird last 6 months of the Trump presidency. But prior to that, it was like everybody was happy except Democrats, thinking he was, needing to go or whatever. But it's going to be an interesting election cycle to see what winds up coming our way. But yeah, just keep trying to be better, right?
Every day, do your best.
Yeah. Obviously watching too much NBC. So cool, guys. That's about all I had on that tonight for the main topic. I did just want to say thanks for all of you coming in, and I enjoy getting an opportunity to come on here and share some thoughts. I am glad that you guys have stopped in to add to the conversation. And again, we'll be having some more videos coming your way starting this weekend with that chicken video that I mentioned earlier. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's being planned for us. We just have to do our best to try to think outside of the box and realize that, our strength comes in our ability to do for ourselves rather than waiting for somebody else by thinking that, hey, I'm going to vote that person in and things are going to be better, because they may wind up slowing down, but they're not going to ever go back to being, or having a conservative statesman. I just never see that happening again. But yeah, thanks again. And just remember, you guys can catch this audio stream on iHeartRadio, Google, Spotify, and Audible. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we will see you guys next week. Go out and be better tomorrow than you were today. And remember that homesteading is not harmful content. Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.